Okay, so this is just a video as a sort of footnote to how I got to platinum, which just like moments ago, with a very cheap deck. As you can tell by the title, it's Ancient Gear. As you can see, I had very little trouble getting to platinum. I'm not even level 75 yet. So let me just show you. And I want to talk about not just the deck, but sort of the Ancient Gear archetype in general, what's good and what doesn't. So first of all, I'm just going to talk generally about every Ancient Gear card. Now I have like a timestamp in the description. You don't care about that if you don't skip that, but this is for anyone who sort of knows the archetype and wants to know like why certain stuff isn't here. Like there's a few cards that I only recently decided just there's no reason to use them in the deck. So Reactor Dragon, it's tribute summoned, it destroys back row, has piercing, does stuff when you tribute it with gadget. I don't play gadgets, it's not worth it for me. He's a beefy boy, but you don't want that many monsters you can't summon. You see, I'm already playing 5 here, at least. And depending on the situation, it's more. And this guy, unlike Ancient Gear Golem, you can't target him with Ancient Gear Fusion to summon from your deck. So, basically, right out of the gate, you don't want this guy. You want as many Ancient Gear Golems as possible. Both so you can use Ancient Gear from deck, and also so you can summon this guy. Because you need 3 Ancient Gear Golems for this guy. There's just no room for Reactor Dragon. No reason to play him. Fuck him. So, Gadgetron does stuff with gadgets. Stupid gimmick, useless, worthless. This card, exactly the same reasons as I explained. He doesn't count as Ancient Gear Golem. You can't target him with Ancient Gear Fusion. He does work with Megaton, but yeah, it's just awkward to use him. You don't want this guy. Ancient Gear Gadget, I only didn't dust this because it's prismatic. Absolutely worthless card. It's not going to do anything for your win condition whatsoever. Stay away from this no matter what. Ancient Gear Beast, it's like a 2k body. Needs 1 tribute or 0 with Gear Town. It doesn't do anything. Doesn't advance your game at all. Ancient Gear Box, I removed this recently. So the old combo to get Chaos Giant, I'll explain it very quickly. You need Gear Town, Ancient Gear Catapult, and no monsters on the field, or else you can't use Ancient Gear Catapult. You pop Gear Town, special summon Ancient Gear Wyvern and Ancient Gear Hound. Wyvern pops, Wyvern adds an Ancient Gear to your Hound, which adds Box. You use Box effects, and he'll search an Ancient Gear monster with 500 defense. So you have 4 monsters, and then use Hound's effects, and use all of those to make Chaos Giant. So the reason you don't want to do that is since this card came out, it's much more efficient, and I mean much more efficient. You want to summon this guy with Catapult. You gotta make sure you use this for your Catapult summon, because you can't special summon him with Gear Town. And then next to him you summon Wyvern as normal, and with Wyvern you add Ancient Gear Fusion. Now what this allows you to do is it allows you to show this guy, and no, that's Prisma. Disregard the last like 10 seconds. If you target this guy with Ancient Gear Fusion, you can summon from deck. So what does that mean for your game? It means instead of searching and using all these resources from your deck and wasting like play slots on 500 defense and an Ancient Gear box, maybe 2, you can just pull all that stuff out of your deck. You don't lose any resources at all. You go +0 just from Catapult and Gear Town. And on top of that, you get to leave Wyvern on the field for extra damage. You can go into, if they have 1 monster or less, you probably want to go into Megaton Golem, send 3 Ancient Gear Golems, 2 to the graveyard. It's gonna attack 3 times, add a limiter removal. That's an easy OTK. Often OTKs even without limiter removal because Wyvern is right there next to him. Nice floating effect if he goes down. If something goes wrong, it probably won't, but it can. Or Chaos Giant, if they have 2 or 3 monsters, Chaos Giant easily clears the board, attack with Wyvern, 9 times out of 10, or 99 times out of 100, that's the end of the game. If you get all that up, that's the end of the game. So, yeah, absolutely no reason to run Box. Gear Frame, he's your 500 defense target. He's better than Knight, which I used to play, but he doesn't do that much. So the only reason to really include him into the deck is if you're using Box, so all the same reasons apply to that. Ancient Gear Castle, you're not tribute summoning. This is a 2008. Don't use this card. Cross-Dimensional Jewel, this card's a joke. This does nothing. Do not play this. Ancient Gear Gadget, I don't play gadgets. Engineer, he like blows up a back row or something irrelevant. You're not attacking with this guy. He's got 1500 attack. Ancient Gear Soldier does nothing, Knight does nothing, Gemini Monster, disgusting. Ancient Gear is not the worst card. You could play this guy, Machine Dupe, maybe get something going, but you don't need it. You really don't need it. Same with Cannon. There's some cute stuff you can do with Cannon with burning your opponent down, because you often do have to resort to burn in some situations, sort of whittling your opponent down while you're carefully managing resources. Usually you don't want to let it get to that point, and if it does, you're probably going to lose. But you could cost some games back. Ancient Gear Factory, just summoning a bunch of Ancient Gear Golems. You need, like, you basically need one in your hand. I mean, you're not playing Beast, so you need one in your hand. And then you need to, like, banish a bunch of... It's just not worth the cost. This would be useful, but you can't play it this time. This is like... You'd be more likely to use this outside of Ancient Gears to get to something really spicy, but you can't use it on a turn. You search it. Obviously, for an OTK deck, that means 1 turn kill. If you're doing a play that takes you more than 1 turn, and your opponent knows you searched the card that you just set, they are going to destroy it, and you are going to lose, and you discarded a card, so you went effectively -2 for playing this. That is not good. That's not good. Sorry. Ancient Gear Workshop. I mean, you want Ancient Gears in your graveyard. You don't want to pull them out of the graveyard ever. So this card straight away just off the table. Spell Gear, this card's a joke. I don't feel like I need to explain why this card's bad, so I'm not going to. 600 attack boost and burn. Burn is nice, but this card needs to be destroyed, so obviously that's not gonna happen. And your relevant attacking monsters, you cannot equip cards to them since they're immune to magical cards. Ancient Gear Fist, you don't need help battling. So that's every Ancient Gear card. That's why I don't play the ones I don't play. But let's talk about the ones I do play. I have 1 Max C. It's very optional. It's very rare that I get any use out of it because I don't draw it that much. I just felt like making one. It's really not necessary. I'd say Ash Blossom is better than Max C for this deck, since you really want to disrupt your opponent to make your next turn easier. But either is sort of fine. I mean, obviously they're broken cards, but you don't need them to get to Platinum with this deck, is what I'm saying. Ancient Gear Underground, easy 3/3. You want to draw this as much as possible because you won't always draw your fusion. You won't always have a play. Very often, if you draw this card, you have at least one other Ancient Gear monster. You go into Howitzer. That's like your B play. That's not your ideal play, but that's your B play. And it's consistent, it's safe. Howitzer won't get blown up. He floats. Usually, there's a few monsters you have to worry about that don't let you use, like there's a prankids one, doesn't let you use your effects in the battle step. So, even though Howitzer is unaffected by effects, that's not true when it goes to the graveyard, so your floating effect can be negated. But overall, it's a solid B play. I'll talk more about how it's later. Prisma. So I talked earlier about how you want to get this guy on the field, so you can target him with the Ancient Gear Fusion, go into Megaton, go into Chaos Giant, pull monsters out of your deck. Very resource efficient, which is very new to Ancient Gears. Usually, you just have to use your whole hand. Not so anymore. Still not the most efficient, but basically play Prisma. You need to play this card. This card's important because this is the only Ancient Gear Fusion that lists Ancient Gear Golem specifically in its materials. This one is better with Ancient Gear Golem, but it does not list it specifically, so Prisma can only target this. You'll send one Ancient Gear Golem to the graveyard. You have this, you can use him to summon whatever you want, end the game. GG. You get that all off, it's GG usually. Circumstances, you know, that can happen. Sometimes you draw some stuff, you have to get rid of an Ancient Gear Golem, so you can't go into Megaton. You know, things happen, but usually that's the end of the game. Ancient Gear Wyvern, easy 3, searches everything in the deck. You're usually going to be searching Ancient Gear Fusion. Sometimes Ancient Gear Explosive to give you a little bit of damage to end the game. Just remember that after you use Wyvern, you cannot set a card, so if you're playing any traps, set them first and then use Wyvern. That's important. Ancient Gear Golem, we talked about him. Toon Ancient Gear Golem. You need this guy because he can be special summoned. But first of all, I just like the guy. I just like him. He's cool. He just looks nice. But also, you need to play either this guy or Reaction Dragon. Does this guy have a special summoning restriction? Yeah, so realistically, you could play Reactor Dragon instead, but I like Toon Ancient Gear Golem. He's your urgent schedule target. He's the only target in this deck which you can summon with urgent schedule. That's why I play 2. Too many times when I was playing one, I would draw schedule and this guy, and then they're both dead cards. You do not want to be in that situation. That's 9 times out of 10 a brick. Yeah. Then this guy over Reaction Dragon, he does have one advantage other than just aesthetics. You could go into Prankids with Ancient Gear Golem or with another one, but that's rare. But your Howitzer is rank 8 as well. So, you know, it can happen. You can do it if you want to. I'm not playing any rank 8s. As you can see, this is unfinished extra deck. I don't need the full extra deck. I don't need the seasonal crap, negate 500 cards. You don't, Ancient Gears don't do that. You hit face, and you hit face hard, and you end the game, and you don't read any of your opponent's cards. If you have to read a card, you've already lost. Don't bother. Dark Hole. I play this over Raigeki, over Lightning Storm, because I need to destroy my own cards sometimes so I can use Catapult or Urgent Schedule. You know, sometimes you... Let's say there's a negate on the field. You want to use Prisma to bait a negate, right? You summon Prisma, maybe that Dragon Maid slot is on the board. She wants to pop this guy. She thinks you're gonna make some big play. Only a bad player would fall for just the Prisma, but maybe, you know, just for the sake of argument, because there's a few situations this would happen. You summon Prisma to bait this effect. The effect is negated, not the Dragon Maid, because that destroys. Just imagine someone on negate. So Prisma's negated. He's sitting on your field. You have Guillotine and Catapult in your hand, but you can't use them because Prisma's on the field. That's when Dark Hole is very useful. You really... I can't stress this enough. Sometimes your own monsters are your biggest hindrance, your biggest obstacle in this game. It happens a lot. So, I love Dark Hole. It looks really cool when you use it. I don't know if you've ever used it in this game, but it's worth a look. It's very cool. Sorcerer Really Light. You can hit this with Catapult. It's a face-up card. It can stall if you brick. Usually it's gonna get blown up pretty quickly, but I like one copy. I feel like it doesn't... It's replaceable. It's not the most important card, but I like it. Hobby's Fairly Duster, remove macro, get rid of those Solemns and all that crap. Decent against Eldritch, but you know, Eldritch is Eldritch. It's not like a GG for them or anything, but It's nice to have. Get rid of some skill drains, maybe. Skill drain is really hard to play against this deck. You have some options if you have a good hand for it, but not a lot. Monster Reborn, Play Extender. You don't really need this card. Terraforming the Search Gear Town or Under the Bound. 1 copy because they only let you have 1 copy. Left Arm Offering. So, this card is maybe one of the hardest to understand. Like, usually you only want to play this in like meme decks, but maybe it's not that hard to understand. Listen, you're playing Ancient Gear Golem, you're ending the turn. Once you pop, you don't stop, you end the game. Sometimes that means throwing your hand in the garbage. That means going all in on 1 card. Usually, I'd say the most common target, Overload Fusion. You've already Fusion Summoned, you have 2 like Swords of Revealing Light and maybe like a Catapult knocking around in your hand. You banish that shit, you get an Overload Fusion. That makes a difference, that wins you the game. This happens a lot, even with just 1 copy. This happens a lot. You don't want to play more than that, but this card comes in clutch. If you play Ancient Gears, I would say at least 1 copy is mandatory. You want this card. Overload Fusion only summons Chaos Giant. Unfortunately, Howitzer is not dark, so you cannot summon Howitzer with this. Even though he kind of looks menacing, he is an Earth type. You're just looking at Chaos Giant with this. But so you need to... Let's talk about this a little bit, because it's from your graveyard or field. That means a few things. First and most importantly, Howitzer and Chaos Giant, well, mostly Howitzer, are not affected by Overload Fusion when they're on your field. That means you have three golems knocking around in the graveyard, you have a Howitzer on field, you pop Overload Fusion, you select all those materials, nothing happens, you just wasted your card. That's why it's very important to always be aware that your Howitzer is not a material until it's in the graveyard. This will lose you a lot of games if you don't pay attention to it. You can... good way to get Howitzer off the field since Darkhold won't kill him, that's for sure. You can Link Summon with him. Make the Link monster. Usually, it shouldn't be too hard. There's probably an easier way to Link Summon him more reliably. My extra deck's pretty bare bones. It's basically all the important cards plus some stuff I randomly got. You know. But anyway, Overload Fusion, great card. Usually you're just gonna focus on playing the resource game. You know, you Hunting Hound, any 2 Ancient Gear cards, you make Howitzer, that's your B play. You have Overload Fusion in your hand. Now you're thinking, after Howitzer goes down, I float another monster. That monster goes down, I have 4 cards in my graveyard, that's an Overload Fusion, I'm winning on the next time. You know, that's 2 is a good number, because obviously this is not the card you want when you start the game, usually. Sometimes it's nice to have, sometimes it'll make the difference to have it early, but more often than not, you're not going to have that 1-turn kill hand. You'll have that about 25 to 30% of the time, let's say. Ancient Gear Explosive, I added this recently. I was noticing a lot of decks, like Sky Strikers for example, they just sort of set 1 card, and that makes it very difficult in certain circumstances to end the game. So it turns into a grind fest. You summon Howitzer, you're summoning Hunting Hounds. You're just trying to burn your opponent down, will them, you're carefully managing your resources, and in the end they summon some stupid bullshit that negates everything, and you lose. Effort wasted. And in those times I was thinking, man, I wish I just had a little bit more burn damage. That's what this copy of Ancient Gear Explosive had. I did not respect this card. I tried it once. This card is really good. It's really good. Just having one, just being able to float a Wyvern adds explosive, 850 extra damage, it makes a difference. It really does. I wouldn't say it's mandatory to this deck, but I recommend playing one. Just one. Because this is a brick card, if you get it at the wrong time. Let's not mince words. You can use it on Megaton Golem. That's 1650 damage. That's pretty good. It won't float Megaton Golem because that's only an opponent's card effect. So you won't get your ultimate Chaos Giant from that. So that's like a game-ending play. Hero lives, summon Prisma. We talked about Prisma. You can special summon him with this. Very common play. You want this sort of ratio because you don't want to draw Prisma with a hero lives. You just want to draw a hero lives. Very common combo. You have a hero lives, you have Wyvern. Use hero lives first. It requires no monsters. Drop Prisma. Show this. Send a Golem. So normal summon Wyvern. Add Age of Gear Fusion. Go into your fusion play. End the game. Very common. Happens a lot. Catapult. I feel like I should mention at this point. This deck loses very hard to Ash Blossom. That's just something you're going to have to accept. You don't care about Max C because you're winning on the turn you're playing, but you do care about Max C insofar as it increases the chances that your opponent draws an Ash Blossom, which can be a problem. You don't spam as much as most decks do, but all the rich kids who spend real money on this game, they're going to be playing 3 Ash Blossom usually. It's can be a problem. Anyway, H-Gear Catapult. You want to target Geartown with this. We talked about that combo earlier. You could target H-Gear Reborn if it's already face up. Usually won't be. Swords of Revealing Light, Geartown, Mounted the Bound, H-Gear Fortress. You have a lot of face ups you could target. If you draw Catapult, you'll probably have one, but not always. Sometimes it's a dead card. Sometimes you already have monsters on field that you can't easily get rid of. But the card gives you a Chaos Giant more often than not, so it's worth it. You know, sometimes you brick. It's gonna happen. This is not the most consistent deck. This is not Sudi X. This is Ancient Gears. This is not Cream of the Crop meta shit. This is not prankids where you normal summon one monster and play every card in your deck. You are the underdog, and that's important to understand. You don't play the enemy's game, you just try and hit the face and get out of the game as soon as possible with that fat stinking W. Ancient Gear Fusion, we talked a lot about this card already. Fuse from your deck, target Ancient Gear Golem. You can also use it to make a cheeky howitzer if you don't have a hunting hound. Usually you won't want to do that, but sometimes you don't have a choice. That's your B play. Geartown. This has a tribute effect. You require 1 less tribute when you summon an Ancient Gear monster. Sometimes, normal summoning an Ancient Gear Golem is the play. And you have to be vigilant. You have to notice when it happens, because it's not the sort of thing you'll always be thinking about. Normal summoning level 8. You know, it's not in your mind, but when you draw Geartown, you've got to be thinking about it. If you don't have like an easy Chaos Giant, you can get a Howitzer, that's your B play. If Geartown stays up, you could tribute Howitzer or whatever it floats into for a Golem. You have access to an Ancient Gear Fusion, that's your play. It's not the prettiest, but it works sometimes. Mounted the Bound, I play 1 copy. It's nice to have. When Chaos Giant is up, it will stop Chaos Giant dying. Chaos Giant is very fragile. He can't be destroyed or targeted by card effects when this is up. He's only vulnerable to monster effects, so this is very important. Zeus, Trident, Prankids, Fucker, Battle Butler, all of these guys, they kneel to your Chaos Giant when you have this. You play it for that rare occurrence where it's relevant, and you draw it, and you make your opponent kneel, because that's what this deck is about. It's about a certain dominance. You want to make your enemy feel like he's a little baby. Ancient Gear Fortress, I play 1 copy. Sort of nice effect. Your shit can't get negated. Your Ancient Gear spells your Ancient Gear monsters specifically when you summon them. It's just another face up to play for the deck. It's you special summon from your hand when it's destroyed as well. And does it just ignore restrictions? Let me check. Honestly forgot. think it does. Yeah, you can't special summon except Ancient Gears, but that's never been a problem for me. So that's fine. It doesn't ignore restrictions, so you can't summon Ancient Gear Golem with this, I don't think. But you can handle Graveyard, put whatever you want on your field. It comes in handy. It's not as good as Gear Town, but it has its uses. One copy is fine, I think. Limited removal, I play one copy, use this primarily with Megatron Golem. Hit 3 times for 6,600. When your opponent has 0 or 1 monster, maybe 2, probably 0 or 1, this is your preferred play, Megatron Golem. Because Chaos Giant only hits a monster once each. They have one monster that's like a, let's say, average 2,000 whatever stat. You're doing 2,500. That's baby shit. You don't want that. You want to end the game while you have the upper hand, because all the good decks will outgrind you eventually. They'll draw one card and that card will become 10 monsters on their field, because that's just how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is these days. You need to strike while the iron is hot. This card has risks. It's much more vulnerable than Chaos Giant, so you should keep that in mind. If you're not 100% sure you're gonna win on this turn, you probably want to go Chaos Giant, but he's not that protected either. But Megaton Golem does float. He floats an Ultimate Chaos Giant, which floats a Golem. So it's not like if you don't win, you've got no options. Like, the game doesn't end there. You can pull it back easily. Top deck and Overload Fusion, for example. GG. Right? So yeah, limited removal also works on this guy, so there is that. Probably won't be doing that too often, but it is true. Card limited removal does not work on is Chaos Giant. You cannot buff this guy in any way. He does not... Does he get Power Bond? I've summoned this guy with Power Bond so many times, but it's been so long since I played it, I don't even remember. I think this guy does not get Power Bond, but I could be wrong. I don't play Power Bond anyway, because you have much more consistent way to fuse in this deck. Consistency is important. You can clear any board if you get your shit off. You just need consistency. You don't need more power. Limited removal is nice, but I only play one copy because it's not important. Sometimes it makes a difference, but usually it won't. Urgent Schedule. Put 2 Goombas on the field. They can't use their effects. Niche play you can do against bad players. Urgent Schedule's effects are negated. You drop a Wyvern and a Toon Golem on the field. You activate Wyvern's effect. Your opponent, being that he's a dumb, stinky caveman, is going to... Ooh, effect! I chain negate! The effect's not going off anyway. He just wasted his negate. Now you can play the game. But mostly you just want to get your material on field. Of course, if it's on field, it's within range of Overload Fusion. You could use this to tribute. This is another situation where you could tribute for Golem. Either 1 with Gear Town or 2 normally. And then you can go into your Fusion card and pull shit out of your deck. End the game. These 2 cards, these are just cheeky. Would I recommend playing either of these cards? Yeah, because it's funny. It's funny watching Eldritch player, prankids player. It is hilarious watching them lose to these cards. That is comedy gold. You want to see this. You want this in your life. Nothing feels better than playing against the world's best deck and watching it lose to Magic Cylinder. Obviously, you don't play too many. They're gonna brick you. You want to win on the turn you play, which means usually traps are not going to be very useful for you. But they can be. Ancient Gear Reborn, much the same story. You usually don't want to see this card unless you're unless you bricked. and you're on your B play, you summon Howitzer. This card can summon Howitzer back. You've got a nice float, revival, loop. You force your opponent to remove this. And if this is a very niche thing, it doesn't happen often. But if you have Gear Town, or your Fortress, you have either of these cards on the field, you get an effect when they're destroyed. If your opponent has a Harpy Feather Duster and they need to get rid of this card, they need to pump those cards. That gives you some options. That gives you gas. On your opponent's turn, if you force to special summon a monster, you probably want to pick Wyvern so you can add whatever you want to your hand. Usually a fusion spell, maybe a Hunting Hound in some situations. I think Wyvern can even he can even add Catapult. You have a lot of options. So extra deck. These are the only cards you need in the extra deck. In fact, you don't even need this one. This is just like all this. You don't need these. But they're options. You know, it's nice to have them for a rainy day. These are the cards you need. 3 Howitzer. This is your B play. This is the card you're most consistently summoning. Floats like crazy. Immune to absolutely everything. Watch your brain dead opponent waste effects on this thing, wondering what's going on, taking 30 seconds for their turn, thinking the game is bugged, they're losing their mind. This is immune to every effect. This thing is kaiju bait. This thing only gets kaiju'd, gets Nibiru'd. You're not triggering Nibiru. You're not special summoning 5 monsters, probably. This is not leaving the field except by battle or kaiju. And that is powerful. That's a wall. That means 99 times out of 100, your opponent is not getting rid of this until the battle phase. That is huge because this floats. That's a big defensive wall. You have 4 shots. Just having this on field guarantees you have 4 shots for Overload Fusion, unless it gets negated in Graveyard. Almost guarantees you have 4 material for Overload Fusion on your next turn. It also burns for 1000 because why not? Set it in defense, whittle your opponent down a little bit, grind them out. Happens sometimes you have to. Works wonders. This card is great. You can make rankades with this. I don't play any because I'm poor. Yeah, that's all I need to say about that. It's a great card. It's just fantastic. So, Megaton Golem. So, like I said before, saying the same shit again. God, how long have I been going? Like 45 minutes? This is taking way longer than I thought. So, 0-1 monsters, you probably want Megaton Golem. You want 3 Golems, it can attack 3 times with 3.3k. Plus a Wyvern that's probably going to be game against 1 monster. With limited removal, it's pretty much always going to be game. Otherwise, you want Chaos Giant. This floats when it is destroyed. Not really something you want to rely on. You don't really want to play into your next turn. If you summon this, you've kind of gone all in already. You want to win on that turn. So don't play just assuming you'll definitely have like a monster on field next turn. Do it if you have to, but don't rely on that. That's a bad idea. Chaos Giant, this is your bread and butter. This is what you want to see. You want 2 of these bad boys. Attacks all your opponent's monsters once. They have 2 or more. This is probably value of a Megaton. 2 is kind of the zone. 3 is where you really want to see this. This will end the game. Your opponent's probably has some dog shit card. It's like Synchro Material, something that's got like 100 attack and 0 defense. This does piercing. Hit that monster, 4.5k damage. Game's basically over already. You've probably used Howitzer and Hunting Hound at 1600. That's 6100 just from killing 1 monster in a realistic game state. Happens a lot. And then you hit 1 more monster and the game's over, realistically. It's immune to all spells and traps. It is not immune to monster effects. Your biggest problem in this deck is dealing with quick effect monsters. Prankids, Battle Butler, Zeus. These cards present a massive problem with you. If you can't get around with the bound, you're probably scooping. Like, it's important to understand that this deck is not strong. It's not meta. This isn't meant to win against those decks. It will, because the people playing those decks are bad, but it's not supposed to. That's what you need to understand. You're the underdog. You're gonna win because you're better. You have to be better. You have to be smarter. You have to be anticipating what the opponent's gonna do. And you have to win from behind because you start from behind. You got no hand traps. You got 2 hand traps. The opponent was probably playing with like 9 or something ridiculous. They got shit out the wazoo. But you just need to hit them. You just need to hit them. Arbit Wolf, nice to have. Attack directly. Occasionally there's gonna be like a 6k monster you can't get over. Gives you some options. You probably won't be summoning this ever, but theoretically it could be useful. Time Thief, I could probably use this card more, but I don't. I just happened to unpack it, so I slapped it in there. Figure maybe I'll use it someday. Gustav, this is important. Gustav Max, you want this. Maybe you have 2 Chaos Giants of Fusion, Ancient Gear Fusion, Overload Fusion. Maybe you have an ultimate Ancient Gear Golem and a Chaos Giant, as I did once. There's only 1 monster on field. That monster is big. That means you're not ending the game this turn. You overlay those guys into Gustav Max, 2k burn damage, game's over. This card, you won't need this card more often than not. You will not need this card very often. But you'll be glad that you have it when you do. Link Monster, very useful for getting Howitzer off the field, so you can use Overload Fusion on it. Not useful for much else, such as Gear Town, but you can't pop it unless the opponent has a face-up monster, which is that you can target, which is more of a restriction than it sounds. I find very often I can't use this card to its full effect, but it is a good card. It is a good card. It's good to play 1, maybe 2. You're not too worried about your extra deck space. You're playing Ancient Gears. This is everything you need. Yeah. So that's everything. This deck will get you to platinum. This deck is a very simplistic playstyle, but it's very easy to mismanage your resources. So there's a deceptive learning curve. You need to be very careful about how you play your cards at the start. Eventually you'll just get a rhythm for it. The deck plays itself. It's not complicated. Probably more complicated than Eldritch, but it's not complicated. So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to show you guys that there is an Ancient Gear deck list that can get you to platinum, and you're looking at it. Thanks for watching.